We're in quite the storm here while I'm making this video. You can see the rain in Texas pouring off the roof, tropical storm coming in. But hey, what do you do in a storm when you're not working? You come down here and you make something on the lathe. We got our can full of odds and ends. We can pull it out and have fun. Aha, what do we got in here? Wow! Almost got struck by lightning on that one. Hi, this is Desmond Butts, and today we're going to work on building one of these, but not this small. This is a Machinist Hammer. Now I'm going to build one a little bit bigger, and we're going to do it in quite an interesting way. So everything's going to be totally custom. I don't have the dimensions right now, only a few different measurements. I will go over those and list those as we go. I'm going to start off with this big large piece of aluminum for part of the head. We're going to put a nylon piece on one side and a brass piece on the other. It's going to approximately, the starting point on this stock is actually 1 3/4, and we're going to have to turn that down a little bit smaller, okay? The handle we're starting with is 3/4 inch aluminum rod. I already did a little bit of knurling practice on this side, but we're going to be changing that around a little bit. Just going to have a little brass end on this end, and that's already been tapped, and we'll go over those dimensions in a little bit. But it's going to screw and thread in on the end. It is also 3/4 inch, and it's going to be turned down slightly and have a little narrow neck. But I'm going to do something very unique with this. And on the handle, we're going to do some direct. On the handle, we will be doing some decorative cuts in here using a ball tool that goes onto my Mini Lathe. And we're going to do scallops with it in the handle slightly. And then we're going to narrow neck this down where it feeds into the hammerhead. Now, sometimes it's easy to do measurements on this with a ruler. I'm going to show you something kind of interesting that many of you may not have seen before. I have 2 rulers. This is normally basic quick 6-inch machinist type ruler. It has millimeters and inches. Usually, you just lay it up alongside like that and make your mark. But this can be a little inaccurate because it moves. Back in my earlier life in the 90s, I used to be an offset press operator, and I had one of these rulers right here. Notice it has a little niche cut out on the edge. It was for putting on the edge of a sheet of paper to determine text center. But it works really nice on rod where you can just hook it like that, and you can see your measurement really nice and clean, and then mark it right across from it. It's really, really convenient and handy for something like this. It just locks right in. You get it really accurate almost every time without getting into a caliper or some other way to do a measurement. So I just wanted to show you that. All right, we're going to put this on, chuck it into the lathe. We're going to cut this back a little bit, tap the end so that I can put the little brass piece on it. When we're done with the decorative cuts, we're going to put it into a mold and pour casting resin on it with some pigment and some filings in it to give it a kind of a really cool machinist authentic look. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's see how well it works. All right, I currently have this 3/4 inch aluminum bar stock in the chuck. I'm going to tighten it down. I have this mark, and this is the thickness of the handle where the wider portion is going to be, where you grip it like that. This is going to be a narrower neck in this area. This right here is currently marked at 4 inches. We can double check that. Yep, 4 inches right there. Currently I have a knurling tool on it. It's a quick release style. There's a lot of different kinds of these, a lot of different coarsenesses and everything else. This one's just one I just happen to have that I got with the lathe. Has 2 of the knurling rollers there. How this one works is that you make the height adjustment where your stock runs nice and equal on both sides. If it's like this and only one roller's hitting it, that's incorrect. They've got to rest adequately centered. Then you just use the cross slide to tighten it up in order to get the carbide tips here to bite into the surface of whatever it is that you're cutting. Now I've already done this. I'm going to do a little bit more of it really quick, and then I'm going to do some scallop cuts. Now you might notice in this particular pass, I'm using a carriage stop down here, and that's going to help dramatically to make sure that it stops where I need it to stop. So you can see it stops right there on that mark that I made. I'm doing a back pass here right now, and then I'm going to go ahead and do one more cut. Right, there we go. Not too bad. First time I've used that tool on this small mini lathe. Now we're going to go back here and cut this down a little bit so I can thread this end, and that way I can screw, I'm going to tap the end so I can screw on that little brass fitting that I'm making for the end. Then we'll get into some decorative scallop cuts in here. All right, this should give us a little bit of a better angle. We're going to cut here and come back and take this end down so we can tap this so that I can make it fit into this hole. I'm going to cut this off right here, add my little mark here, and that'll be a threaded on end cap on the bottom of the hammer. And then of course we're going to cast this whole thing. The actual handle is going to be about that much thicker with epoxy. So let's get her done. Tiny bit of oil on there. Okay, I'm starting to cut this down here so I can tap it. It needs to be taken down. I'm going to use a millimeter tap, and the diameter of this needs to be taken down to 10.6. Right now it's like 17 something, so it's going to take a little bit. I also changed the tool because I wasn't satisfied with the finish of the other tool I was using. This one's more of a 90 degree, but it seems to be putting a better finish on this. Okay, I think we're getting close. 11 point, whoops, let's zero that first. There we go. 11.26. A couple more short, quick passes, we'll try it again. $10.9. $10.7. Just a tiny, tiny fraction more. $10.62. Doesn't get much closer than that. And I'll set it up to tap the threads. Alright, what I'm doing now is just going to make sure that I just bevel the edge just a little bit with the file. Make sure there's no burrs on it. A little bit of a sanding block here. Alright, now I'll stop it and we'll load in a tap and so we can get this tapped out correctly. Alright, here we are. I'm going to put just a tiny dab of oil on there. Come up here with my Jacob's chuck and with my tap. All right, here we are, almost done. Taps in there. Got a good start. Threads are all the way out to the edge. Just a little bit more. There we go. Put the little wrench on there to give it a little bit more leverage. Back it off. Make sure it's cutting okay. Okay, I think that's all the way there. All the way up. So we'll go ahead now and get that backing off here. There we go. Take a little air and blow it off a little. Cool, see if it fits in a sec. Okay, threads look good. I checked it out. It's a little bit too long, so I'm going to nip off a little bit of it so that it seats properly in the back of this. Cool. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and part this off. There's a little red mark right here. And that way I can thread it onto the end for decoration purposes. It looks like it's about, I'm going to cut it off about 3/4 from the end. 3/4 inch. You guys with the millimeters, that's going to be, about, let's see, 17 or so millimeters, something like that. Just shy of 20. Now, I also put this brand new nice clean cloth underneath there. That's because I want to catch the shavings of this brass. It's kind of messy, but I'm also going to use those shavings very specifically. I'm going to mix them in with some resin to make the handle pour that I'm going to do. And I wanted some of the little shavings and things that, to make that clear resin kind of sparkle and things like that, just to give it a little bit of personalization, so to speak. Put it in the lathe. I already face cut it, and we're going to cut it down a little ways, maybe about 10 millimeters in. Now while I'm doing this, I do have the carriage lock on to help me keep everything where it needs to be. Okay, this is a picture of the end of the handle with the brass fitting that's been threaded on. I tightened it up with some Loctite, and then I did just a little tiny quick cut just so that it all made it perfectly true across here, and then flush cut the back side here and polish that up. We can make some other custom specialty type grooves into this part of the handle and take it over and do the other side of the handle in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to show this really quick briefly. These two marks here are going to be little scallops we're going to use with the turning tool, and we'll do that later. This is the end of this. It's going to be tapered from here down to about 12 or so millimeter, and we're going to part it off here, which is about 7 inches from this side. So we'll cut it off right there. And then I'll turn it back on and we'll start turning this side down first. I don't want to turn or mess with these yet. I want to do this last because I'm going to re-knurl this a little bit because we've got a couple little marks here where I've put it in the chuck, and I want to try to see if I can brighten those up a little bit because they left marks in my knurling. Okay, I'm going to talk about a couple things real quick. This is a ball turner attachment right here. It has a little end on it to make it easy. You just thread it in here like this. You can turn it like that. Now the ball turner is on the inside right here. I put the bit the other direction, the cutter, and this makes it like a concave cut instead of a ball cut. If I flip it around this way and I go like this, it'll round the end here and make a ball end cut. Okay, I want to do just the opposite. Problem is, normally this is going to be like this, and the jig, the way it's set up, comes in too far in that direction unless I'm cutting a ball. So in order to do this and get this far enough out, because the cross slide's all the way out to this direction, I'm going to have to angle it like that and set it up a little bit, every once in a while a little more and a little more, to get these cuts where I want to get one of these cuts. So I'm just showing it right now. I'm going to put it on 30 degrees right here and kind of see where it goes when I get it a little bit closer, and see if I can get it in there to do a little swing cut like this to get a little groove, a nice little scallop cut into there. Okay, I'm set up to do this. As it turns out, I only had to go 10 degrees in order to give me clearance room to here. There, see if we can get this, not easy to see, it's like directly in the shadow. Maybe that'll work. I lined it up so that where the closest to the radius of this is right where I want. The closest to the radius is right where I wanted this to be. So it's going to cut like that. I'll just incrementally twist in and we'll get a little scallop going on right here. Using a little bit of a soft foam sanding block here, works really well. Got two different grits on each side. Now from here I'm going to graduate this down and take this all the way down to where I want it to be. I just wanted this nice little scallop, try it out, see how I liked it. We're going to put a couple more in this area over here. Alright, so far, here's where I'm at. Okay, here we are. I'm working on this handle. We've got the nice little decorative cuts in. This is the neck. The hammer's going to go up in this section right in here, thread in like this. Got a little lock nut that's going to go on and butt up so that it does that really nice. But right now I'm going to make a little bit of an addition to this handle with some resin. And we're going to use these particles of grit and brass to sort of dress it up in the background. We're going to dip this into it. We're going to dip this into the resin. And I'm going to use a Red Bull can as my mold. Got a little background noise on, so I'm going to shut the noise off after this just because I've got grandkids floating around with me, so it'll go silent while I do this, but you'll get the idea. Shh. Okay, I've got this all done, put tape on it to stabilize it. It's filled actually to about right here. Took a little more than I thought it was going to. We're going to let that set, break it off and see what we got, and then we're going to machine it all back down so that it makes a nice handle. Well, here's my cast piece on the handle, and I don't know what happened, but for some reason it cracked, it self-fractured. So I'm going to have to try to clean all this up. It certainly didn't turn out like I thought it would. So now for plan B, and we'll see if we can salvage this. Okay, I guess my cast didn't work out quite right. Had a bubble in it, and it cracked, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to get this stuff off of here and get it back down to the bare metal again. Well, here's the handle back to raw metal again after the epic fail of having that cast that just cracked and didn't work out. And the head is being machined down right now. This right here, the width on it is 1 3/4. I got it cut down to 1 1/2, and then I drilled and tapped that so that I can put the plastic and the brass face on each end. I haven't done this side yet, but I've got to turn it down. This hole is just temporary. It's going to be widened out, and I have to have equal distance on both sides of that hole. And so I got to make sure before I re-drill this, because I'm going to do it in the lathe, that the distance between here and here and here and here is exact so that it'll center up properly. So I'm going to play around and do that next. got this all trimmed up pretty much flush. Gonna have to polish it a little bit later, but we're gonna do a little center drill tap right there real quick. Then I'm going to use a drill it out, and then use a boring tool to make sure it's concentric in relation to this, so it's centered. We'll do that in a bit. Okay, here we are taking this down. I already center drill tapped it, and this is about 14 millimeter hole, so that the top part of this kind of goes in the neck. So if I can show you real quick, feeds in like that. And it threads down in there like that. And I'm going to put a lock washer in there. It's going to turn out good. So we're just going to shave this down a little bit and make this a little thicker in the middle. Same on the other side. Clean it up. And then we'll get our brass and be going. Cool. Okay, this is pretty much done. I'm cutting a little bevel in on the edge. On this side, where it's at right now, I will flip it around and I'll cut the bevel there on that side, same way. Okay, this is what we got so far. I don't have the ends on yet, so I'm going to put a black plastic Delron end and a brass end on this side, and then we'll be done. Just waiting for those to show up in the mail, but I think it's looking pretty trick. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to make a quick explanation on what I'm doing. This has been reamed out to about right here by my thumbnail. This is a 3/8 piece of drill rod, 6 inches long. Eventually it's going to be the handle. I'm going to drill it in about right where this band is, all the way through. This will go in there as a handle. Right now, I'm just using it as our centering device. It is spring-loaded. You can see that. There's a high-tension spring I put in there. It's got a little shoulder in there. It's kind of hard to see, but the shoulder comes up to about right there. That allows it to stop on the shoulder instead of butting up against the tap, and that allows the spring to catch it, to always provide even tension on it instead of having to run it in with the stock on the back. So this is my own design, something a little bit different. We're going to give this a shot, see how it works. Right now, I'm going to make the face for this out of brass, and then we're going to use our brand new holder to thread that baby, and then we're going to put it on the hammer, and then I'll have this in a separate video, and this is in a separate video, but this shows you how they all come together to make the project work. Okay, here we are. I've turned this down to about 10.2, so it's going to be the right size to start to put threads on it. See, we've got the die in there. Now this is on a 3/8 shaft and the chuck. Now later I'm going to probably make one with a taper in it, so I can just put it right in here. But this is spring-loaded, see? Kind of something that I try in on my own, see how well it works. That way I can press up to it. I can apply force as needed by cranking here. But this is kind of my own design, so we'll see how this works out. Okay, we're lined up. You can see that it's nice and spring-loaded right now, and it's lining up okay. So we'll start doing a little bit of threading here, see if it works. I may have to turn this down just fractionally. We'll see if I can get it to start. Okay, it's working. It's getting them cut. You can see the spring works well because you can see the drift in and out, and it's keeping tension on it, which is doing a good job. So we'll pull it off when we're done. Cool design, I like it. Well, alright, well there's the hammer attached to it. We're going to take it off, and we're going to use the tool and probably cut it off about right in there after we kind of polish that up a little bit, make it look pretty. Cool, cool. And of course we got to use our trusty die holder that we made today in order to finish this project. Now I'm just waiting for the plastic, black plastic, to machine a mill and put on that in, and the hammer will be done. Alright, we're getting closer. Got the beautiful brass face done on this. Turned out great. Tapped it, tied it in, polished it off. I just need my plastic one, and then we'll face off this one and polish it up just a little bit more. Awesome, awesome. Alright, here we are going to finish off this little hammer. We got to put the Delron face on this side. We already did the brass one, as we shown earlier. And I've got a piece of it right here, and I cut a piece off, put it in the lathe. Already face cut it, and we're going to cut it down a little ways, maybe about 10 millimeters in, so we can put some threads on it on this side, so we can thread it into that face of the hammer. So we'll get started on this. This stuff kind of machines messy, as you can see. Just gets tangled up. You have to keep stopping and starting and yeah, it doesn't like to come off very easy. However, the material itself is smooth. It's not, you know, not chewed up or anything, but it just, lots of stops and starts. As I'm getting closer in on the cut, it seems to be behaving itself a little bit better. Okay, we're getting this pretty close. It's down to about 10 millimeters. And I'm going to start threading this thing here in a little bit. So might get it down just below 10 so it has a little better bite on the thread. Okay, here we go. We have this turned down to about 10 millimeter roughly. We're going to put the die on it. Of course, this is spring loaded. Helps keep tension on it even without putting too much. Then I don't have to put too much force back here with the crank. So we'll line this up and see what we got. Alright, as you can see, we're getting a little bit closer. I'm doing it by hand. The tension on the spring really works nice on this idea. I'm glad I designed it that way. So we'll get the threads cut, back it off, and see how it fits. Alright, we're backing this off now. And it looks like it did a good job. There we go. Clean up the little end here a little bit, but other than that, we'll get working on it. Cool. Okay, so here we go. Here's the part right here. It's been cut off. I'm going to try to clean this face up just a little bit, and we'll thread it on and take it from there. Alright, so we're all done with our Machinist Hammer build. I'm going to show you that. Here's the parts right here, all left. Okay, finished with my Delron plastic end there. It fits really nice. It's in there tight. It is threaded, so I can unscrew it if I want to. See that? That way I can replace it, I suppose. Hopefully I don't, have to, but we can if we want to. So I'll put that back on. Fits nice and good. No gaps, nice and smooth. The brass one's threaded too, but it's on pretty darn tight, so I'm not going to worry about that. This shows the countersunk hole, 14 millimeter. I actually have a lock washer so that it doesn't rattle or doesn't just come loose randomly if I'm using it. That way I can put it together and it'll keep it snug. But I can still take it off if I need to work on it. Alright, there you have it. I also wrote down all the dimensions, all of the measurements on it, and I'll show that next and it'll be done. Thanks for watching. Okay, we're all done. I have it taken apart at the moment, and I'm going to give you some dimensions on this. So hopefully you can read them. First, let's start off with the handle. Okay, this is the hammer build. The handle, if you can see, has 8 millimeters, and that's by the threads here. The distance between the thread and here is 15. The thickness of this is 14. The distance between here and here is 63, or 2.5 inches. The distance between here and here is 4 inches, or 103 millimeters. The brass end happens to be 5/8 or 16 millimeters. The thickness of the handle is 3/4 of an inch, or 19 millimeters. The overall length of the entire handle is 7 1/8 inches, or 181 millimeters. Now for the hammerhead itself, there's quite a few dimensions on that. Let me move this out of the way. Well, let's start with the hole size. This hole is countersunk. Okay, it's 14 millimeter hole, countersunk 10 millimeters deep. The little center hole in there where the threads go is 8 millimeters, and it's from the surface all the way in is approximately 30 millimeters deep, but you don't want to go all the way through. Just enough so it can thread in, and this can catch here, and this is going to have a lock nut on it when I put it in. So this will have a lock nut to go in here to keep it tight. I'm also going to put a dab of epoxy in there just to keep it all in there so that it doesn't back off. Okay, the distance between the two centers, so between the brass end, all of the aluminum, and the Delron, okay, distance between there, is 68 millimeters, or 2 5/8 inches. Okay, the center distance right here, this piece, that is 1 5/8 or 42 millimeters. The distance between this edge here is 1/2 inch, or 13 millimeters. Same on the other side. However, the diameter here is a little bit smaller on the brass side than I did on the Delron side, and that's not necessary. I just happen to do it that way. On the brass side, it is 30 millimeters, or 1.25. On the Delron side, it's 1 5/16, or 34 millimeters. The thickness of the Delron side is 5/16, or 8 millimeters. And that's the same as on the brass side. And I think that about does it. So if you have any thoughts or any questions or comments on it, let me know. This will be all put together, if I can get it threaded in here. And when I put that lock nut in there, it'll be all nice and tight. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe and recommend it to other people and post it.